The goalie carousel continues to go round and round in the National Hockey League. Hey, Joel Palin, and welcome to another episode of the Hockey Talk Show. This is a quick hit live shows coming soon. I know I'm going to say that, but soon, like in a week or two, I think. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We have a trade to announce.
It's
my Gary Bettman impression. It's not very good. It's hard to impersonate Gary Bettman, though. He's just kind of like an average, normal, everyday dude. Arizona and the New Jersey Devils hook up on a deal, and the goalie carousel continues to roll around the National Hockey League. I actually think that this has the potential to be a pretty overwhelmingly good deal for the Arizona Coyotes. I mean, the Coyotes are in a place right now where they literally need to just throw as much stuff up against the wall as possible and see what sticks. And you know what? Scott Wedgwood has a good chance of sticking. Here's a guy that when you look at his stats, they're pretty good. Now, pretty good in the sense of this. Down in Albany, 2015-16, 2016-17, he played in 32 games over the course of 2 seasons and had a goals against average of 1.55 in 2015-16 and 2.18 in 2016-17. That, my friends, in case you're wondering, is how you spell diamond in the rough. When you're looking down in the AHL, you need to have a goals against of around 2. Like, to me, that's the signifier of, a goaltender that is got a lot of potential. Now, he's 25. So he's not, in that young range anymore, sort of midway through his career, most likely. He has had some struggles, went from the AHL down to the ECHL for a game. I don't know what that was, maybe a conditioning stint. But he's bounced around a whole bunch over the course of his career. Goals against up in the 3s for a little while there. And then he started to just slowly notch it down. And then what happens is over the last 4 years, he goes from a 2.39 to a 2.74 to a 2 to a 1.55 to a 2.8. That is a pattern. That's what scouts look for. Like, where is this guy coming from? Can he figure it out? Is it great to get an 18-year-old and throw him in the lineup and watch him improve and get him in the minors and get their numbers up and get them playing games? That's all fine and dandy, but you want to see a pattern. Scouts look for a pattern. When somebody is getting into their mid-20s, maybe he's starting to figure it out a little bit. Devin Dubnyk, anybody? You know what I'm saying? That's where your head's at with a guy like this. New Jersey's on the east. Arizona's on the west. New Jersey has Corey Schneider. This guy's pretty far down on the depth chart. Makes a lot of sense. Basically, when you look at it, the Arizona Coyotes had to do something. I mean, their goaltending has been abysmal. Antti Raanta, meh, and he's been hurt. Louis Domingue has been killing this team. 7 games played, 4.33 goals against average with an .856 save percentage. Those are awful numbers. Those are not National Hockey League numbers. You have got to do something when you're in that scenario. And good for the Arizona Coyotes in recognizing that and making a move. Let's be honest. The goalie market right now in the National Hockey League sucks. There's no two ways about it. It stinks. There are no good goalies available. Really hard to come by. The only way you're going to improve your goaltending situation is if you are in this sort of, let me find that diamond in the rough. Because I still maintain and hold true that the New York Rangers should trade Henrik Lundqvist at some point during the season. But he's not going to go to a team like the Arizona Coyotes. I go back to that. It is one of the most controversial things that I keep saying. I feel like one of those wacko conspiracy theorists that's like, no, I'm telling you, this is going to work. And everybody thinks they're nuts. But I'm telling you, the Rangers, especially heading down the path that they're headed down, if they don't turn it around and turn it around soon, come Thanksgiving, you got to start shopping Lundqvist. You have to start shopping. But it's going to be one of the more difficult trades to pull off because the Rangers have to get a good return. I mean, a really good return. And he's got to go to a team that works. Arizona Coyotes are not ready to win a Stanley Cup anytime soon. There's no reason to trade him from the Rangers, who look like they're really headed into a serious rebuild, to the Coyotes, who are not nearly close to figuring it out. I hesitate in saying that, though, because if you look at the Coyotes' record, can't get comfortable here today. If you look at the Coyotes' record, it stinks, but they as players haven't really been all that bad. It's weird to say, but it feels like they're not far off in a lot of cases. They lost a lot of 1-goal games and a couple of 2-goal games. It's not like they're getting destroyed 6-2. It's not like their games aren't exciting. It's not like they're out of it in the first period. They're in a lot of their games most of the way. They just can't seem to close. So maybe they are a really good goaltender away. I don't think so, though. I think they have a lot more issues to deal with. But overall, just on feel and perception, which is really big when you're talking about somebody like Lundqvist, who's got a waive and no trade. He's not going to go to a team like Arizona. Not unless they go on a 20-0 run and just light the league up, in which case nobody's going to be shopping for an $8 million goaltender anyway. So you see what I say? The uprights for trading Lundqvist, they're like this. You know what I'm saying? They're not like regular uprights. They're like this. It's got to be perfect, and it's got to be the right situation. It's got to work. But I think that if you're Arizona, this is a good move. Bring in Scott Wedgwood. Hey, 2.1. Here's the thing. No one can be worse than Louis Domingue. Domingue stinks. Hasn't been good. Deserves to be sent down. Scott Wedgwood looks like he's going to get a start here, and good on him, because the Coyotes have to figure out something. They really just got to figure out something. Ronta's been brilliant. I think he'll carry the load, but you want to bring in that other guy who's going to be able to balance it out for you. And as we're seeing in the National Hockey League, a lot of teams are going towards these 2 goaltender situations. You know, you look at the Islanders, Yarrow Halak, Thomas Greiss. You know, not everybody has a Carey Price. Not everybody has a Jonathan Quick. You know what I'm saying? So for those teams that can't be in those like ace situations, they got to have a good 1A, 1B situation. And, you know, Ronta's not a proven goaltender just yet. You know, he's been good. He hasn't been somebody who shows that he can carry the load for 60 plus games and give you amazing stats at the same time. So the goalie carousel continues. A smaller carousel over there in Pittsburgh, as Tristan Jarry has been recalled by the Pittsburgh Penguins. They send Casey D. Smith back down as they continue to look for somebody to back up with Matt Murray there. I think Jarry is the more prized prospect other than Casey. I think he's got a little bit more to offer there, so I think you'll see him. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see this constant up-down situation for them, as Matt's going to play the majority of the games, and they're going to want to sort of rotate that backup situation. So that goalie carousel will continue to roll for sure in Pittsburgh. Want to quickly mention here Mark Streit, who has announced his retirement for the game of the National Hockey League. I just want to personally thank Mark Streit as a proud New York fan. Notice my New Yorker jersey. I'm an Islander fan at heart, but try and be unbiased, I should say, on this one. Trying to be unbiased, which I know how to do. I learned how to do while I was working for the National Hockey League. He was the captain of the New York Islanders in an interesting time. Left to go to Philadelphia. Started really catching fire in Montreal. A little bit later on in his career. It was one of the steals for Garth Snow. I praised Garth Snow, saying that guy knows how to find those diamonds in the rough pretty good. Mark Streit was one of them. He went on to be an incredibly great puck-moving defenseman. Had a tough time in Philadelphia, as a lot of players did while he was there. Was not an easy time for them, although they did have that great run against Chicago. And, wound up signing a contract with Montreal. And this kind of just goes to show you how broken things are in Montreal this year. He signed as a free agent in Montreal in July, and then that was it. They kind of parted ways with them. He did say that he was pretty shocked when he was demoted. This is a story that was in TSN. He signed a 1-year, $700,000 contract in Montreal in July. And then 2 games into his second stint with the team, the Canadians waived the 39-year-old and sent him to the AHL. Streit told the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette this week it was not a move he saw coming, saying, quote, "What happened in Montreal was kind of a surprise and a shock. I expected something else, but it is what it is. It's hockey. It's a business. you shake it off, see what's out there, and what you want to do. Streit refused to report to Laval, and the Canadiens terminated his contract earlier this month. They believe he'll return to Switzerland and attempt to make the national team for the 2018 Olympics. Streit was in Pittsburgh Tuesday to receive his Stanley Cup ring from the Penguins. He played in 3 games during the Penguins' playoff run, all against the Ottawa Senators in the Eastern Conference Final. He joined the Penguins at the trade deadline last season after he was traded with Philadelphia. Streit said being a part of the team, it was special winning a cup, getting a ring, and having the cup back in Switzerland. It was unbelievable. I couldn't dream of a better end of my career. So a good out for Mark Streit. He goes out as a Stanley Cup champion. But, he went back to the team that drafted him. Clearly, he wanted to make this squad. Clearly, the squad needs a puck-moving defenseman. Seemed to work out. $700,000, very affordable. I guess there was something there with Mark Streit that just didn't work, and Marc Bergevin wound up waiving him. The shocking thing is, I'm not surprised the Canadiens waived Mark Streit because he's 39. But then you look at where they are right now in the season, and you're surprised they waived anybody who can move the puck. I mean, honestly, Streit at 39 may have still been help for this franchise, which is quickly plummeting. Let's talk about some trade rumors here. I was really fascinated to hear this, and it made me sort of see an overall theme in the National Hockey League right now, which is that the league is filled. I mean, chock filled with underachievers. The amount of underachievers in the National Hockey League right now is shocking. And I think this is because of a couple of reasons. We always say the game's going younger and faster. That has started. Now we're getting to a point now where it's kind of like, wait a second, that guy's not working. That guy's not working. And you're starting to see some of these older guys who signed contracts, before the last work stoppage or were prominent before the last work stoppage, starting to slow down and now starting to basically lose their places with their teams. We're seeing this all over the place. Nikolai Kulemin with the New York Islanders. Rick Nash is a big one with the New York Rangers. Mikhail Bodker is a huge one with the San Jose Sharks. And according to Bruce Garrick of the Ottawa Sun, he finds himself on the outs and a possible candidate to be traded. Apparently, Doug Wilson, according to Bruce, is trying to move Mikhail Bodker, Chris Tierney, and defenseman Paul Martin. There's 3 players on the San Jose Sharks alone that are severely underachieving. Now, when I say this works out to be an overall theme, a lot of players are underachieving. And again, this is sort of like, to bring in a really weird analogy, when you were kind of like about to get ready to give up on MySpace and fully commit to Facebook, we all have those moments where we're like, man, MySpace is so much better. You can make things twinkle and twirl, and you can make colors, and Facebook's just blue and white, and it's kind of boring, and I don't get it. And then like 5 months later, you were like, man, MySpace is dead, and look at how awesome Facebook is. That's kind of what's happening. The National Hockey League is transitioning. They're going for younger and faster. Skill isn't as important anymore as, a guy who can just move the puck up the ice and get it in there. You no longer need 3 skilled guys on a line. You kind of just need 1 or 2, and then 3 guys who can really just move the puck super well. And I'm talking about like a third line, which is kind of where Mikhail Bodker finds himself. But the guy has just been not good. The Sharks are off to a 5-5 start. Bodker is the team's 4th highest paid forward. He has 1 goal, 4 points, and is a -4. He's a $4 million cap hit through 2019 and 20. He scored 10 goals, 26 points in 82 games last season. So he underachieved last season. He's off to an underachieving start this year. And this is exactly what's happening throughout the league. You're starting to see these guys who are making $4 million, $5 million, $6 million, $7 million in some cases, but really more in that $4 to $5 million range, who are vastly underachieving and not doing as well as that youngster over there who's making $600,000. He could also score you 10 goals in a year, and you don't have to pay him $4 million. But you got a lot of these contracts still hanging around, and I think it's going to be another 3-4 seasons until we see some of these guys rid themselves. Now, my question that I ask you is, where do you send a Mikhail Bodker, a Chris Tierney, and Paul Martin? Paul Martin, a great defenseman back in the day. He's getting up there a little bit long in the tooth, a little bit up there in age. I don't know where you send these guys. You have that Ryan Strome, Jordan Eberle situation where here's a case of maybe a change of scenery will do us good. Seems like both of these guys kind of line up. Good for the Isles. They get a little bit more of a proven guy. Good for the Edmonton Oilers. They get a young, good prospect who's on his way and hasn't figured it out yet, but making a lot less than Jordan Eberle. The financials work out for Edmonton better. I don't know if you can necessarily find scenery changing deals for all the Mikhail Bodkers that are out there. You say Bodker or Bodker? I've heard both. I'll switch it to Bodker for a little while. Can you find a Ryan Strome for this Mikhail Bodker? Can you do it? Is there enough of that to go around? Because as of right now, Rick Nash is got to go. He's going to be traded if the Rangers don't turn this thing around. Like, he's the first one to go. His contract is expiring. They'll take a 6th round pick for him. Who cares? If that's all you're going to get at the end of the deadline and you're, heading towards last place, then he'll go for nothing. The Rangers will do that just to get rid of him and pick up something. It's not a bad, and Nash, as horrible as he is still not a bad rental pickup. You want a Rick Nash on your third line going in or, sitting there ready to jump in case anybody gets injured. You need to stack up for the playoffs. Players get injured. Look at what happened with Nashville last season. Look at Nashville. If they had Ryan Johansson all the way through, could have been a different outcome for them. You never know. But it's everywhere. The Edmonton Oilers and Peter Chiarelli saying the same thing. We're underachieving. We need to figure something out. Detroit, Buffalo, Chicago's 5-5. Edmonton is off to such a mediocre start. What are they, 3-5? Forget the Rangers in Montreal right now, who are vastly underachieving. I mean, trouble status as we cross the 10-game mark and we're marching on our way to 15-20. I want to look at this middle class of mediocrity. Oilers, Detroit, Buffalo, Chicago, Edmonton, San Jose. What are they going to do? Are they going to trade their problem underachieving player for the other problem underachieving player? We heard Mark Bergevin talk about this the other day. He's not going to swap one issue for another, and then he's still in the same boat dealing with an issued player. So I read these reports of these trade rumors, and they're interesting. We all like to see trades. We all love a good trade rumor. But you look at Mikhail Bodker, and where the hell are they going to send him? And what the hell are they going to get in return? Guys like these you can make good deals with guys like these when you need to change the scenery guy, when you need a team that's got to reach the cap floor. There's not a lot of that left in the National Hockey League anymore. Vegas was kind of that last one that needed to hit the floor, and they've hit the floor. They're done trying to hit the floor. I don't know who the hell you trade Mikhail Bodker for. I mean, unless you got a coach of his that coached him at some point and is completely in love with him, I don't know what you're going to get for him, and I don't know what you're going to get in return. And like I said, there seems to be this middle class of mediocrity in the league right now. That's not great and not at Ranger and Montreal status. And they all have these guys in their lineup. And, what's the answer here? I mean, it's funny. It's laughable. You hear Peter Chiarelli, we need to figure something out. And soon. You hear the Detroit Red Wings. Hey, those guys in that room got to figure it out. I'm not going to do it. They got to figure it out. Mark Bergevin, they got to figure it out. All the general managers are starting to essentially say the same thing. At some point, they got to look around at each other and go, oh, we're all in this troubled boat right now. We got to figure this out. Because seasons are starting to, take turns. This is where you're starting to get labeled. The Vegas Golden Knights are no longer a surprise sensation. Surprise is over. Can they maintain? Can they figure it out? You're not going to be surprised by the Vegas Golden Knights. All the teams are going to start doing or have been doing their homework. They're going to start paying extra attention to the Golden Knights. So now you got to see if they can stick with it. But it's not going to be a surprise for anybody anymore. The Vegas Golden Knights are not a surprise. They're an 8-1 team. Are they 8-1 or 7-1? They're 8-1. They're an 8-1 team. Let's move our focus over to the Vegas Golden Knights. They start a road trip now. 8 of 9 of their next games are on the road. Now, I already said Vegas is a legit team in a past episode. Everybody's like, oh, they played all the easy teams. They played Arizona twice. They played a lot of tough teams. They beat Chicago. They beat St. Louis. Do you know what I mean? St. Louis lost 2 games, and one of them was to Vegas. So they're a legit 8-1 team. I believe that. But those doubters are going to say, well, 8-9 on the road now. Where's Vegas going to wind up? Vegas is going to wind up just fine, because if Vegas goes 4-5, they're going to be 12-6. So they're going to be just fine. If they can go 5 of 4 in this next 9, they'll be 13-5. That's not a bad record. If I told you your team was going to start the season 13-5, I don't know a fan that wouldn't sign up for that. That's outstanding. So if you look at the Vegas Golden Knights, even if they can stay and maintain 500 on this road trip, they're going to be just fine coming through it. And that's why the start of the season is super, super important. We've all seen teams make these surges towards the end. The Kings that year that they got into the playoffs and won the Cup as an 8 seed. I get it. A lot of 8 seeds go on. Nashville was an 8 seed, although they didn't really surge. They were always kind of hanging out in there. The Islanders were surging last year. They fell just a point shy. That's what happens. Beginning of the year, super important. You're building your team's identity. We talked about confidence. General managers all saying those guys got to figure it out. They got to have confidence. They're skilled. They're losing. It tells me they don't have confidence. Confidence. The 9-2 St. Louis Blues look a hell of a lot more confident than the 5-5 Chicago Blackhawks. And I don't know a person on this planet that doesn't think that Chicago's a better team, maybe just slightly, but a better team than St. Louis. Because, hell, they have been over the last 10 years. They will certainly have a lot more Stanley Cups to show for it. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where we're at with the Vegas Golden Knights and this confidence deal. 8 of 9 on the road, and they go into the Barclays Center tonight to play the Islanders, and the Islanders have won 4 out of 5. John Tavares is coming off of the #1 star of the week. 2 hatties this week. 2 3-goal games, a natural hat trick for him in the last one. 2 hatties, and the guy is just putting on one hell of a show right now in Brooklyn. He really, really is. He's got this team up on his back once again, and he is carrying them to where he wants to go. And he's in a contract year. Could you imagine if Tavares puts 40 in this year? Could you imagine if he finally sort of hits that plane and puts 40 in? He's going to raise his value. Sure, maybe it's only another 5. He's still going to get 10 million from somebody either way, but maybe he's going to get 11 million. Maybe he can pump it up to 12 million. Who's not going to want to buy John Tavares at 12 million if he has a 40-goal season this year? I don't know anybody. Who's not going to take that gamble on John Tavares? I certainly would. I don't think he's ever hit 40. Just double checking. He got up to 38 and 14 and 15. Outside of that, he's been a career 30 goal scorer, sometimes a little bit better. But he's a points guy. 86 points, 70 points, 81 points, 81 points in 82 games. He's an all-around player. He's not a strictly 40 goal scorer. But could you imagine if he gets up to 40? He's got 9 goals right now in 11 games. It's a hell of a pace. Hell of a pace. I think it's going to be a fantastic game tonight. Real test for both franchises. Islanders 4 out of 5, and they sit right now in a wild card spot with a 6-4 record, which is a good start for the Islanders. They want to be where they are. 7-4 is better. But they're up against 8-1 in Vegas. Vegas, this is kind of really their first this is their first time up on the East Coast. How's that going to work out for them? We'll see. I think it's a good test right now for both franchises, and I expect it to be a pretty close game and a pretty good game at that. So all around, we look at the goalie carousel continuing to move. Mark Streit hangs it up. And I feel bad for Strider here because here's a proud guy, Stanley Cup champion. Sure, he goes out with a ring, but God, you want that to end up better with Montreal. It sucks that he's retiring, I guess, with the Canadians, even though they terminated his contract, so technically not. It just thinks that Montreal is doing so poorly that he can't go out in a little bit of a better light. I'm not saying they're going to retire his jersey. That's not going to happen. But maybe they would have had like a Mark Streit night or a little ceremony or something, give out Mark Streit T-shirts or something like that. That might have been happened. That's maybe a possibility, because you're looking at a player that really has no identity. Was with Montreal, was with the Islanders for a while, moved on from them, was with the Flyers for a while. This little stint in winning a cup with Pittsburgh. He wasn't there long enough to really be like a big deal in Pittsburgh. And now he's back. It's kind of like the guy almost had no home, really. Especially when you hear things like he's going back to Switzerland to go play for the national team over there. It's unfortunate that the Canadians aren't doing well to give him a proper send off. This middle class of mediocrity and the Bodker trade, and where's Rick Nash going to wind up, and all this kind of stuff. You look at all these players that they're just vastly underachieving, and if you're a manager right now, like, what do you do to fix it? Like, that's sort of the point. Like, if you're Bergevin, if you're the Rangers, or if you're the Edmonton Oilers, if you're Detroit, if you're Chicago, who's still dealing with a ton of cap space, I don't know if there's any shakeup. I don't know if there's any trade to shake things up. What do you do but just sit there with your hands tied? Because as a manager, what can you do? You could bench a player. You could cut a player, send a player down. You can call a player up to get a spark, or you could make a trade. And, a lot of those aren't really appealing right now for a lot of these teams, And there's just a vast amount of underachieving. It's a vast amount of killer achieving right now. You look at Kucherov, Ovechkin, Tavares, Philip Forsberg's got 8 goals in 11 games. Austin Matthews, Clayton Keller. This guy's having the best rookie season right now, 11 games in, and his team hasn't won a game. It's unbelievable. That just shows you how bad that goaltending situation is. You got one of the bright spots in the game right now, and you can't even win a game. You just can't win a game. But you look at all the players that are just vastly underachieving, that just aren't doing well. I look around at all the guys who have only 1 goal. David Krejci, 1 goal in 6 games. Ryan Strome, we talked about him, 1 goal in 10 games. If Stromer don't figure it out this year, if he has an abysmal year this year, I don't know if he's going to be in the league for much longer, or he's going to find himself on the Arizona Coyotes. That's for sure. Zemgus Girgensons in Buffalo. Seriously, there's another team underachieving, not doing all that great. He's got 1 goal in 10 games. You just look around the league, and there's just a lot of players, that are just seriously underachieving. Carl Hagelin, even though Pittsburgh is doing well, in 13 games, only 1 goal and 1 assist. That's a little low for Carl Hagelin. We're seeing a lot of guys just kind of struggling right now to figure it out. And who knows if there's any end in sight for some of these cats. Who knows? But I don't know if there's much of a trade market for a lot of them. That's why I'm saying these managers got to sort of figure this stuff out. Like, where do you go? Jimmy Vesey, 1 goal in 12 games. I'm just sort of rolling through the list of players here. Justin Williams, 1 goal in 10 games. It's a tough thing with Carolina and Justin Williams, because you got to know the guy always has traditionally a slow start. He doesn't really put it together till playoff time. He's a playoff time performer. Grabbing him any other time is a bit of a risk. You're looking at all the players that have 2 goals that should have more. Derek Stepan, 2 goals in 5 games. He was brought in to help that offense out, Even Joe Thornton's off to a little bit of a slow start, 2 goals in 10 games. I mean, he's got 5 assists, so 7 points in 10 games. You can't complain about that too much. But Jakub Voracek, Philly's doing pretty well, 2 goals in 11 games. Some of these guys are getting off to slow starts, should have a bit more. Pavelski, 2 goals, 3 assists in 10 games. A little bit low for him, being one of the big contributors for the San Jose Sharks. So, again, and I know we've seen a couple of minor swaps here, the Devils, Arizona, there's a couple others. But, as far as big names moving around, I just don't foresee it anytime soon. I don't see the magnets, the pluses and the minuses finding each other right now in this abyss of middle-class mediocrity that's going on in the National Hockey League standings right now. But of course, if anything goes down, we'll be following it here. That's what we do on the Hockey Talk Show, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, whether it's on your podcatchers, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, iTunes, wherever you grab your podcasts. Thanks for taking the Hockey Talk Show with us. Live shows soon, maybe not immediately tomorrow, but definitely really soon. I'm getting really excited because the community, I'm starting to see it really sort of ramp up. We're starting to see great Facebook numbers. YouTube's slow, but it always is slow, but it's getting there. And the podcast numbers are through the roof. So if you've enjoyed the show at all, share it around a little bit. Throw the share button on social media. Retweet us on Twitter, Instagram, throw us some likes, throw us some love there. Just shout us out a little bit, tag us in one of your photos. All that kind of stuff is cool. It helps us out, helps us go a long way. We've been doing most of this through word of mouth, and it's been growing pretty exponentially so far. So I'm super excited about that. Great little quick Monday, quick shift here, and we'll be back at it tomorrow with another quick hit. I'll see you on the next shift right here on the Hockey Talk Show.